Now you can hear. There you go. Look at everyone. Hello. Other one maybe? It's not that big a room. It's not that. There we go. Hi, everyone. Uh, on this rainy day, which you don't want to be outside enjoying the sun, you want to begin here coming and learning about the stills. You want to learn about stills and why. This is how this whole panel started. It was just stills, people. Figure out how to do that. My name's Daniel Northway Frank. I'm the industry director here at Imaginative, and I welcome you all here to our industry series, which is supported by the Harold Greenberg Fund. We've had three sessions yesterday, welcomed by the Canada Council, and two live pitch competitions, where hopefully we'll find out which doc and which drama artist has won roughly $8,000 each in cash and in-kind prizing. So we're really excited about that. They were really fantastic projects yesterday. We're really impressed. And I want to also thank all of our esteemed panelists today and all of you for coming. We really thank you for your support with the industry series, but just giving your time and energy when you're also busy and deciding to fly down just to kind of do this stuff. It's so great. Thank you. So I'd also like to thank Air Canada En Route Film Festival, who is supporting this, sponsoring this event. They have a festival coming up shortly, and I want Anna McGrenahan, the in-flight entertainment programming coordinator with SPAFAX officially. Yes. Okay. Just to say a couple words, and we'll show a little video.
Thank you, Daniel, and thanks to Imaginative for having us as part of the festival this year. As Daniel said, I am the coordinator for the Air Canada En Route Film Festival, which supports emerging filmmakers across Canada and is a really great way to gain exposure for short filmmaking. 20 shorts are selected each year to be part of the festival and are shown on board Air Canada's in-flight entertainment systems, as well as at select screenings across the country. We have a fantastic jury voting on the films each year, and filmmakers have the opportunity to win some fantastic prizes to help boost their careers, including a trip to the Berlin International Film Festival. Submissions for the 2017 festival open in April, and you can follow our Facebook page for more information on that. We also have two events coming up in Toronto, which are free and open to the public. We will be hosting a filmmakers panel with Vice at their offices on November 16th, as well as a free public screening of a selection of this year's shorts on November 17th at Scotiabank Theatre. And you can find more information about those events also on our Facebook pages. So we hope to see you all there. And I believe we'll be showing our trailer for the festival this year. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Hello. Thank you. And just a reminder, in case you're flying on Air Canada, aside from this, we have a great partnership with SPAFAX, who does the in-flight programming. We have an Imaginative Presents Indigenous Film Shorts program that's on flight. So if you go to the Canada section on your little monitor there should be a little Imaginative icon. And so we show a selection of Canadian-made work from the festival last year. So that's been our 5th year, and it's great. It's a great way for us to outreach to over 11 million potential people over the course of September to December of every year. So check it out if you're flying in Air Canada for the next couple of months. So I'll just leave it to Cindy Benitez to start us off. She'll be moderating the panel today. And we've had a great discussion amongst ourselves, and so I look forward to having one with you here. Thanks so much.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? There you go. Thank you for coming out so early in the morning. And so what we're talking about is marketing. It is everything. You have some great panelists here who know the ins and outs, you know, as actors, filmmakers, marketing managers, and me. I'll just introduce myself real briefly. My name is Cindy Benitez. I work for the Smithsonian Museum of American Indian in New York City. I also do social media coordination as well in our museum. But as my freelance work, I also consult, and I'm a freelance publicist for nonprofit organizations and artists and filmmakers. Roseanne?
Hi, Cindy. Hi, my name is Roseanne Supernault, and I'm an actress, writer, and producer, and I'm very happy to be here at the festival today. And I'm here to talk more about the, about growing a following on social media in particular. Everyone else, I think, are covering more of the content. I am an actress predominantly, or first and foremost, so I'll be talking about my journey in growing my following in social media.
Hi, I'm Leslie Stafford. I work at the National Film Board of Canada. I live in Winnipeg, and I've lived in Winnipeg most of my life, and worked in film production as a unit publicist. I've also worked at for different arts organizations in Winnipeg: theater, dance, music, lots of nonprofit work, lots of groups that don't have a lot of money but still need to do their work and get their message out. At the NFB, I manage the social media communication and marketing programs for long-form documentary films that are made in our Winnipeg, Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver offices. I sometimes work on Toronto projects, but mostly I work in the West. So I'm really happy to be here, and I'm so happy to see so many people up and around at 10 o'clock and so keen on learning about marketing. So yay!
Thanks. Hi, everybody. My name is Emil. I'm a film producer from Greenland, but currently based in Copenhagen. I have the great honor this year of presenting the Greenland Spotlight program at the Imaginative Film Festival, which I hope that you will all check out. It started yesterday and will run in the coming days towards Sunday. I met Daniel 2 years ago here at Imaginative, and we worked together as well at the Berlinale at the European Film Market this February. And Daniel called me up a few weeks ago and asked if I could take part in this marketing panel, and I was like, how does Daniel know that I used to work with marketing? And he didn't, so I guess that he has some kind of sixth sense in finding his panelists. But so that's a good thing. I wouldn't call myself a marketing expert by any means, but I just happened to work with marketing some years ago in Denmark, and now I'm an independent filmmaker. And the transition from working on big scale film marketing to kind of promoting and marketing your own films, I think that's been an interesting journey for me that I would like to share with you today.
Great. So we're just gonna go basic. What exactly is marketing? So here's just the general definition. The action or business of promoting and selling products or services, including market research and advertising. Okay, what in the world does that mean? All right. So in language we understand. What are your goals? Who is your audience? What do you need to reach this audience? Who can help me create these assets and materials? And when do I use these materials? I know they're really, really basic questions, but now it's just kind of going on its own. Sorry, guys. There you go. So what exactly does all those questions mean in layman terms, really? Okay. You identify your target markets and audiences. You support the distribution of the product. You're creating promotional materials. And where can you place these promotional materials? Leslie, I mean, for you, it really is marketing? I mean, these are all just, general statements and stuff, but I mean, for you.
Well, I think marketing has kind of a bad rap because we all think about it in terms of, the Coca-Cola campaigns or the things that are monstrous and huge and manipulate us and et cetera, et cetera. But actually marketing is just really understanding what you have and who might be interested in it and who you think should be interested in and who will be interested in it. So those are three very different things. I find, the great thing about someone who is doing marketing or some sort of, communications or social media is, especially if it's someone from not the filmmaker, is they have an outside view. So when you work on a film, we all know it takes a long time, and you're so immersed in it, and you have so much time and energy, money devoted to it. And so you sometimes, I think we all need to have someone look at from the outside to go, okay, what is this? Who's it going to appeal to? How can we do that? So that's what a marketing person helps a filmmaker do. And you may not always agree. For sure, you're not going to always agree, but at least you have a conversation about what everybody's area of expertise is. The filmmaker's area of expertise is making the film. No one's going to dispute that. And then the marketing person or your publicist or your social media person is the person who can help you understand how you can talk about your film, where you can talk about it, and who your audiences could be in those spaces. I think that's probably really related to what you do. As an actor, you're trying to build your brand, your following, your fans. You're trying to engage with people who want to know what you do and why you do it.
I think you make a fair point when you say that there's a lot of headbutting when it comes to marketing. I've also worked as a social media manager, so I've been brought on board to with perspective projects and with companies. And I can't tell you how difficult it is to explain or try to get someone to understand the nuances of social media and what, like, we look at a person who has 1 million followers or who has 500,000 followers or 20,000 followers, and we all sort of conceptualize the ideas about how that happens. And when I've worked with people or companies, there tends to be stubbornness and sort of like headbutting, for sure, I would say, and it takes a lot of teamwork, I think, to figure out.
Yeah, for sure. And it's about having a team, that respect each other, right?
Yeah.
So everybody understands that we're going to disagree, but, can we come to a place where we can move forward as a team? And your team could be, your creative team. You do that on set all the time. If you're working on a film, you have someone who's shooting, someone who's editing, someone who's doing your composing. Ultimately, you as a filmmakers are going to make the final decisions, but you also want to know what those people have to say because that's their area of expertise. And I think it's the same conversation. You won't agree all the time with everyone, anytime. Like, it's just not going to happen. So what do you need to know from the people who do this all the time on different platforms too, but also with different products? Because I think it's also a really valuable exercise to work with people who may not just be specifically engaged in film, because there's a lot of crossover with music and dance and theater, and I think that especially when you're working at an independent level, those communications people, those marketing people, those social media people are working in those platforms too, right? Because nobody has the luxury, or very few people have the luxury in the work that I do as an independent to work exclusively on some specific format like film. When I was a freelancer, I did a lot of different things, and that actually complemented what I did because I learned different things about every group and artist and the way they wanted to communicate and what they wanted to communicate. So you don't necessarily have to work with a film publicist, a film communicator, a film social media person. I mean, obviously it's helpful, but in an independent level, and certainly when you're trying to figure out, who is going to be interested in you and your work, it's really interesting to talk to so that cross-disciplinary thing. And you would know that as an actor, as a writer, it's the same thing. And you as well, as a filmmaker and someone who's done marketing. You understand that your contacts, wherever they come from, even your family, can be your sort of team,
True. I just would like to ask, how many here are filmmakers or aspiring to become filmmakers? Okay. It's just nice to kind of set the stage for whom we are addressing and what you might want to know. But for sure, and I think that in the media world that we have today, compared to like only a few years ago or 10 years ago, it's just the role of ourselves as film producers and filmmakers in this work of building an audience and finding a way to articulate your film towards a market is becoming much more important. You play a much more important role yourself as an independent filmmaker in trying to formulate that marketing strategy from the beginning of making this film. And when I used to 10 years ago work for a company which was one of Denmark's biggest film distributors and biggest film companies, it was in a completely different system where we put out like huge American films to the Scandinavian market, and we would separate everything into windows, and over there in the back of the room you would have the first window, which was theatrical, and then coming over here a few months later you will have the video sell-through, the physical DVD discs, and then all the way in the back, years after the release of the theatrical version, you will have the TV release. And these three windows would basically be completely different marketing campaigns made by different marketing departments within the same company, and I mean that's just silly. It's the same product that they're selling. And then video on demand came along, boom, and everything changed. And you could see like desperate marketeers trying to adapt this video on demand thing into this way of boxed thinking. The mantra at Nordisk Film where I worked was business as usual, just ain't gonna do it. And what we did every day was business as usual because it worked. But when what VOD did is that it kind of pulled all the windows together. You could no longer separate them, and things would switch places, and windows would drop out, and you know, all the things that we used to rely on, they were just no longer there. And I think making that move for independent filmmakers like myself and a lot of you people, it's really more about trying to build a strategy towards through the whole production, and trying to, as we'll talk about later, finding the image that represents your film, finding the line that represents your film, and the more that you can deliver a strategy to a sales agent or a distributor, when you get that, because it's hard to predict as an independent filmmaker when you will make that deal, when you will be interesting to a sales agent or distributor. It might be only when the film is finished. And the more that you can really give of yourself in that process, I think is really good, because it's a hard fact that nobody in the world will care as much about your film as you do yourself. But you have to work to make that an advantage for you.
Yeah, I mean, you get, I know a lot of filmmakers. I've been working at film festivals, and I think the biggest one was Sundance. And how many filmmakers, shorts, features, you know, try to market the heck out of that. They just didn't have enough money. And so you would just see tables and tables of like postcards, and like, you're like, okay, it's overloaded. Like, where, you know, what film should I pick up? Postcard, what should I see? And as you said, like the VOD and social media, now, like, I've seen like creative ways that people have like really, you know, they'll have like a social media campaign, a really good hashtag, or even something as simple like as a keychain. I'm going to give a shout out to Billy Luther when he had the film Miss Navajo. He made little sheep keychains. And so out of all of the sea of things, you just see this little sheep sitting there. You're like, what is this? And you're like, pick up the little sheep keychain, and the bottom it says Miss Navajo. And all of a sudden you just see like sea of people with little, you know, little sheep. And I actually still had it until last year and it broke. But, you know, there's just like innovative things like that. But what we're going to cover here is basically like, what do you need to market your film, or, you know, get an idea, budget-wise, you know, just basic stuff. And, you know, we'll talk more further, like our own personal case studies of what we've experienced. The one that we always talk about when we had a conversation was visual materials. They are essential. I actually have a little meme that's in my office that says 300 DPI is everything. It's funny now, but I know we've all experienced in our own way like how essential a high res picture is. It goes a long way in terms of, you know, for the programmer, for your marketing person, for your social media, for your website. It's something that kind of just, you know, essentially like just the one thing that goes, okay, this film looks really great. This still just is amazing. Let me look at it. So here are the key things: the visual materials. Sorry, look at Ernie crossing crossing it. Sorry, guys. Okay, so the first one is the key art image. What will it be used for? Could be used for everything: poster, web banner, e-postcard, sky's the limit, print, online, e-flyer. Image needs to be work in all sizes and resolutions. So make sure that when you're doing it, that we can actually see it. We'll have like case studies at the end of it, like actual submissions that have been sent to me, and you might laugh, but it's real. Posters, EPKs, separate the title treatment. Actually, Leslie was the one that put this together because this is what the National Film Board asks, correct?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, I sort of simplified it, but yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. What to do? 5 to 10 high res stills, 300 DPI. Make sure you circle that. 300 DPI. 5 to 10 clips. It would be really great. I mean, if you have the time, you already have the film. Would be really great if you had like something for the marketing person to actually market, like video. I've seen videos that are 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and sometimes they're really great, but what's easier for marketing people is basically 30 to 120 seconds, if not 60 to 90. So, I mean, for me, just to like at Art Museum, just to post something online, 60 seconds is enough. Because after that, people are like, I'm done. Even me as a programmer sometimes, it's just like, gosh, this is a really great trailer, but people are just going to tune out, especially when you're trying to market flash. E-flyers, those are basically, what you put your image, your event memo, synopsis, and even a postcard. Our museum loves postcards. We have one social media page for a whole museum, and we have 1 million departments. So as a film department, we have to be really unique. And how we do it is we physically make postcards, because the majority of our audiences are basically these elderly, like who are hardcore like film enthusiasts, and they don't use social media. They don't have email. So basically, they're like, the only way we'll go to your screenings is if you send us a postcard or flyer. So not only do we use postcards, but we also use social media. It's just like, who exactly is your audience that you're trying to project? As a film programmer having a film event, that's what I have to do. If I was elsewhere, it would basically be social media. But again, it's, who your audience is. Leslie, would you want to talk more about the visual materials?
Yeah, I was thinking about this after, because we spoke last week as a group before coming here today. And before I worked at the NFB, and for many years I worked as a unit publicist, which is different than a publicist. A unit publicist is someone who works during production, in pre-production, with the filmmaking team, understanding what needs to be gathered during production to be able to promote the film after. And unit publicists still exist. They are fewer and far between because budgets get smaller and smaller and smaller. But essentially that is your job as a filmmaker, or the job of the person that you're working with in pre-production and production, is to go, okay, we need these things. And we can get, like, the stills have to be most of the time picked up during the shoot. Your bios of your actors can be picked up during the shoot. Interviews with your actors can be picked up during the shoot. You need to get those things during the shoot. You can cut your clips, you can cut your trailer, you can, do your e-flyer after the film is done, but you can't get your stills after the film is done, because, and despite what anybody's going to tell you, frame grabs do not do the job. Everybody says, oh, well, we'll have frame grabs. We're shooting No, they don't. So you actually need to take photos. This is like, everybody here and probably other people in this room will go, yes, but you'd be surprised how many times, even at the National Film Board, I work on a film that comes to me and there's no photos taken during the production. So, and the photos can be your poster. It is, again, as you said, your e-flyer. It can be what's on, like, I brought an example of, this is the cover of the Hot Docs Cinema magazine, which is a still from a film that I'm working on right now called Angry Anook, which opened the festival this year. And this is a still photograph that, you know, we picked because it was a great photograph and it's everywhere. So this is an example of where a photograph can be. This could also be on my, I mean, it is on our website, but as an independent, this could be the image for the film if you decide that that's what it's going to be. So you have to understand that this still is like, goes everywhere and can be almost everything for you. And it really can't happen outside of the production. So that was one thing I thought of after, is we have to establish also when these things need to be gathered.
Yeah.
So when you're working on your film, you need to sit down with someone, or or on your own, say, okay, here's what I need. How can I get these during the shoots? What are the best days on my shoot that I can make this happen? And go through the list and make sure you're always checking in on the list if you don't have someone that you're working with.
And I think the reason why we point this out all the time, and I've been to a dozen of talks like that, where there will be someone saying 300 DPI in one context or another, and it just I don't think it changes things very much. You can hammer people in the head with it 100 times. The thing that it comes down to is that when you're on production, you're really pressed really hard, and your budgets may not allow for extra people taking care of still photography, and especially on a documentary production, which I do the most, it's hard to bring extra people on the set. So we had a talk which I think was interesting about maybe going to photo schools and trying to recruit volunteer photographers that might want to have some experience shooting film stills for you. Or you can go the other way and be more ambitious about it and say, this is actually from a production that I'm involved in now, where it's a really ambitious documentary film by a Russian director, and it took like 3 years to finance, and in the end the director was like, okay, I want to use every penny of this budget on the film. I don't want to spend anything on a still photography coming to fuck things up for us. So the ambitions on this film are very high. It's a matter of getting the Screen Daily cover and the variety and getting selected to Cannes and all of these things that require that you have visuals for your film. So what we did is that we actually did another project aside from the film. Talked to a really well-renowned art photographer and financed an art project, a photo art project, to run along with the film, allowing for this person to come along on the shoot and do her own still photographies that would work both as stills for the film, but also as a physical art exhibition that can travel with the film when it's finished. So that was a way of finding another type of funding for the photos, rather than spending the film budget doing the stills.
I think I'd like to add that as an actor, there's this trickle-down effect of what you guys are talking about with 300 DPI images. They're so important. I have like folders upon folders in my desktop of literally like documenting my career since I started when I was a teenager. And the ones that I release on social media, it's really the tip of the iceberg. Like and I'm so grateful to all of the productions that thought of these things, all of the filmmakers and producers who thought of these things, because you're following on social media. They're like kids. You got to feed them 3 times a day. Like you can't, just leave them, like, oh, thanks for the follow, bro, and then just not give them anything. And I don't know what I would do if I didn't have literally, I have hundreds, if not thousands of photos on my desktop. And every week or every couple weeks I'm sitting aside and I'm like, okay, what am I promoting this month? What movie am I working on? What throwback Thursday can I do? What flashback Friday can I do? Who's my woman crush Wednesday? Who's my man crush Monday? And I'm like, it's Sunday, people are at church, and then they leave and they're at lunch and they want to, it's like, what am I promoting? And those 300 DPIs like I wouldn't have the followers I have if I didn't have 300 DPIs to work with, if I didn't have those. And, and then when I when I like sort of embarrassingly like I'm blushing, I like share the crappy photo and I'm like, oh, everyone just like glance at this and like it and move along with your life. Like the crappy photos. But the good ones, they're awesome. So there is a trickle down effect, and I would say don't take advantage of, be grateful of and be supportive of actors like myself who care about marketing and who are invested in that sort of thing. Like, feed us those things and include us in your CC us, please. When you do your promo, I care about that stuff, and I want to put asses in the seats. I want to get people to come to your movies when I'm acting in your movies. That's my job. I consider that my job. So it's really great when you guys like CC us and you just keep us posted. Like, if it takes you 2 years to edit the film, that's fine. Like, just let me know, and then when you have those photos, send them to me.
I think that's a really good point about, it's about, who your champions are and who your audience is. And your audience can actually be the people who worked on your film and should be, whether it's your crew or your actors or even some of the people where you shot, if your location connections or, like the people that are coming along for the ride on the creation of this film or whatever project it might be are actually the people that can champion your work moving forward. And that's locally, especially locally, because that's a super important piece of it. And if you live in Winnipeg, like I do, we try to do a lot of work with, the creating a engagement and interest in what the NFB does in Winnipeg, not just what the NFB does around the world or in Canada, but what we do locally on the ground. And so that's a huge part of it, because you as filmmakers or artists or even marketing people need to establish yourselves in a framework that so people know you. And again, that becomes a little bit about what's your brand, who are you, what do you do, how do you talk about yourself, who are the people who are interested in your work at the local newspaper or at the local gallery or whatever it may be. I mean, that's part of understanding how you grow your following. And we say this at the NFB all the time. I mean, we're getting a little off topic here, but filmmakers sometimes like to do websites for their films and or Facebook pages for their films, and we're like, actually, you should be doing your own Facebook, your own website, your own as an artist. Who are you? Talk about your film there, because you don't want to start this Facebook page and this web page and this. And for every film that you do, you actually want to talk about it for you, because that's what you're doing. You're talking about you and what the work that you do, and the people that are interested in what you do and what you say are going to follow along no whatever you're doing. So that's the piece that I think is also an important. I don't know if we put that on the list, but
I think we did.
Sorry, I'm getting a little off topic.
No worries. I mean, like I said, we could have a whole topic about this stills and like how to promote yourself. But we actually really want to start talking more about our own personal experience. So not going to fly through this, but what's also important with visual is the synopsis, the basic stuff. I know I've had experiences that people have sent me 2 pages, or people have sent me one page, one sentence. Jack and Jill goes down the hill. Great. Well, what is your film about? So it's so key. And I know from experience that not everybody's a great writer, but there's somebody on your team that's a writer. If you really are uncomfortable, like trying to, minimize your paragraph or whatnot, go to the film programmer. I mean, if you're submitting to a film festival, ask them. Be like, can you look up my film? What do you think? How would you describe it? There's always a way around it, but it's so essential for even a bio. I mean, you, Roseanne, I mean, like, if you had a really lengthy bio and it doesn't really explain anything about who you are, then, people are like, okay, great. Next page. And keywords. Yeah, right? Even keywords. I mean, something just pops out that just makes it easier. I mean, like, descriptive words, like, not like amazing, be like, illuminescent, stuff like that. Like, for me,
Evasive,
elusive, stuff like that. So just real briefly, like, what exactly, like, who should be on your team if you, really can afford it? There's a publicist, and then there's the social media manager. For me, I, as a publicist, I usually just call myself the front line. Like, I am between you and the rest of the people after that. So I am the person that kind of goes, okay, how do you want, to promote yourself? What exactly do you want? Like, what newspapers do you want to tap into? Do you want newspaper? It's just basically like your right-hand man in terms of, like, what you want to be projected out there. Not everybody can afford a publicist. Clearly understand. I've done a lot of pro bono stuff. A lot. Um, But for me, it's for a lot of first-time filmmakers, artists. It's kind of a scary world out there, especially when you first start. So you don't know what you can do. And another is a social media manager. And Leslie, if you want to talk really quick about that, social media lead, actually.
Yeah, I think like the way we work at the NFB is we do have the luxury of having 3 people, myself and a publicist and our social media lead on every film. And that's a luxury, obviously, not everybody can have and very few people have. But you can also find people that are able to help you with all 3 of those pieces. So even as an independent, as you said, people do pro bono work all the time. I've done pro bono work, over the years in various capacities and in different art forms, and I still do it here at the NFB. Of course, you want to help people who are trying to get their film out there. I mean, it's natural. But I think for, I can't speak on the social media piece of it so much because I'm not on the front lines. But your social media person really understands the platforms and what is accomplishable on those platforms. Obviously, we all know the different platforms have different capacity and different potential. And sometimes, Facebook is the way to go, and sometimes it's not. And you need to understand what exactly you want to accomplish and when. Because the life of your film, as you've mentioned, used to be very, the windows were this and this and this. And sometimes they kind of still are. We work very much that way at the NFB in terms of what we're doing and when. But we also know that in those various windows, we need to support all of that work. We work on all of the windows. So, our distribution team makes plans for what they want to do with the film, and then the 3 of us move into how we're going to support each one of those windows and how they overlap. So social media doesn't always fit into every piece, just like publicity doesn't fit into every piece. And I think that's something that's really important to understand as a filmmaker, is that, yes, of course, when you're having your world premiere, your festival premiere, your marketing person or your publicity person and your social person need to be engaged in that. But when you're doing a community screening, maybe not. It depends on what the goals are. If you're going internationally, maybe you need all of those 3 people, maybe you don't. Maybe you're doing a tiny little, screening at the community center, and all you want is the people from the community center to come out. So you don't need to engage everybody. But I think the important piece is that you have someone who's kind of following you along. It could be any one of those 3 people that understands the goals of each group, but I think it's just important to have somebody to come along with you along the ride and act as a sounding board and as someone who can help you figure out what you need and when. So, obviously not everybody's going to have the luxury of having a 3-person team all the time, but as long as you understand what the phases are and when you need to integrate someone, I think that's the biggest piece.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add to that? Social media?
Well, social media-wise, I think, one of the most important things I'd say for understanding your market, like we have insights now. Facebook, like Instagram's now a subsidiary. I don't know if subsidiary is the proper term, but Facebook bought Instagram. So now they're implementing all of these algorithms. I, for one, noticed that because my likes went down on all of my photos after Facebook bought Instagram, and it pisses me off. They did, though. They implemented their own algorithms, so they shifted the way that the algorithms work in Instagram. And there's a lot of people who work very hard to understand how those things work because, for instance, if you could get 1,000 likes on a photo, within an hour, you will end up on the explore page of a lot of people. So your biggest goal on Instagram basically is to wind up on the explore page. Like there's forums dedicated to doing this. I've been there. I've seen the dark side of the internet. I've been there. I've been down this rabbit hole and I've seen things I should not have seen. But there's things I refuse to do. There's a lot of crazy things people are doing out there in social media to gain these followers and gain these audiences, but you can see your audience. I know that 70% of my audience is males between 15 and 24. I know that because of insights. So just take a look, like see it, who your followers are, and then set goals. Set goals. Be like, who do I think is going to watch my film? When you have your team, when you have your strategy that you're laying out as a filmmaker, producer, and a social media manager, you can figure those things out. Myself personally, I'm always trying to figure out, like, what are the kids into these days? They're changing their minds every 5 minutes on who they like and who they don't like. Last week they liked Taylor Swift, and then Kim Kardashian released that video. Now they hate her. How does that affect music? Do we want Taylor Swift music in our project? You too can think like a 13 to 14-year-old boy by exploring Instagram. So I do this. I'm like, I want to understand the audience. Like, I know these people are coming out to watch my movies. On the front of having a publicist, I don't know, were we talking about publicists yet?
Mm-hmm.
I got that. When she said publicist, I was like, I think we're talking about publicists now. So I recently brought a publicist on board on my little team that I have going now, and this has been a big year for me in that I have 4 films coming out and a TV show, a brand new TV show, and then Blackstone on top of that just got to Netflix. So I was like, holy smokes, this is a big wave and I got to ride it. So I hired a publicist, and yes, they are expensive, but they're great. And so these films are benefiting from my, as an actress, hiring publicists, because they're, like, for instance, I'm in the Northlander, which is on the closing night of the festival here, and people are very interested in that. My publicist put out the press release saying the projects that I'm attached to, and as soon as she said Aboriginal sci-fi, all these journalists were jumping on it. They're like, what is that? What is it? Because it's unprecedented. They're like, what does that look like? So I don't know if there are any actor, performer type people, but you know, if it gets to a point in your life where you've got that many things going on, just, it never hurts to put your own hard-earned money back into your business. If you're making a strong decision like that, for me, I say it's worth it.
Yeah. How much time do we have, Daniel? 15. Okay. So we're just going to talk a little bit. I mean, we already went in depth into our own experiences in terms of stills. For me, oh my gosh.
Morning on
We
stills.
get but in all seriousness, the screen grabs. If you can't really hire a photographer, this is what I always tell people. If you're going to do screen grabs, make sure you try to find the best image. I mean, there are software out there. People have used GIMP.com. People have used actually like higher version of Photoshop, whatever. Sky's the limit. But as long as, if you're going to use the screenshot and you're going to send it to market your film, make sure it's of good quality. If you can make it 300 DPI, great. If not, then, you know, just something that we can use, because that little image that you sent us, I mean, I had one filmmaker, God bless him, literally sent me, I thought it was a thumbnail. I really did. I was like, oh, this is a really great thumbnail picture. Can you send me the actual photo? He's like, well, that's all I have. And so we have to like figure out ways to do it. So ourselves had to use a screenshot or screen grab. And for me, it was like, wow, this film is really great, but there's not an image that can really represent what it is. Because we don't have time to go, you know, watch 97 minutes of your film and like try to find a really good image. Oh, okay, boom, this looks really pretty. But it doesn't really describe what the film is, or you as an artist, or, you know, you as a period. But it's really essential. And if you really can't hire like a photographer, there are so many photography schools out there. I myself have seen a lot of artists use interns, like people who are like, I just need to have this in my portfolio, and all you have to do is like, okay, can you take a couple shots during my film 2-3 days? Not saying the whole entire time, but it actually really helps, because a majority of the photographers that I've seen that come out of film photography school or even film school, they actually use that in their resume to work on other sets. So here you go. You just started a whole chain effect of like, wow, okay, now this photographer probably thought he was just going to be a wedding photographer, but now he's on film sets. So there's always, if there's a will, there's a way. Not everybody has a lot of money to market and to do all these, great things, but there's a way to do it. If
I'll just jump in
Yeah.
there too and say, stills photography on a set is very different now because everybody has an iPhone,
Yeah.
or everybody has a phone of some kind where you can take images and hopefully with a decent enough resolution. And those are fine too. Like as long
Yeah.
as the resolution is fine. And for me, as a marketing person or a publicist, what I said before is when you go through your schedule, you've got 6 shoot days or you've got 60 shoot days, whatever it is, you need to go through those days and figure out, okay, when am I going to see the most actors, locations, costume changes? What is if I have $100 to spend to get someone out to come for a day, or I have 1,000, what are the days in my schedule that give me the most variety of image and people and locations? And generally speaking, those are the days you should go for if you have a limited amount of money, because you're going to get the most variety versus if you're working on a set for one day on one scene. It could be the most important scene in your film, and hopefully you can get that with somebody. I see the photographer in the back room nodding his head. Yes.
You got a job, man.
Yeah, exactly. So it may be the most important pivotal scene of your film, and hopefully you can pick that up yourself on your iPhone or somebody else on your crew. But also, it's really valuable to get a variety of images, and I think that's an important thing that you don't need to have. I've worked on so many films for the last 25 years, and I have worked on one film where there was a photographer on set every day. It never happens, even in Hollywood. They just don't have the money. So, but they knew that they needed stills for this film. It was the Bennett Miller's Capote with Philip Seymour Hoffman. And it was a period film, and they knew that they needed a stills photographer on every day because it was a big cast, a lot of big-name Hollywood actors. And what was really fascinating to me was that they shot on film. Stills photographer shot on film. And this was, I don't know when that film came out, 6 years ago, 8 years ago. They didn't do digital, and digital was everything, and digital is everything now. We know this for all sorts of good reasons. But this was MGM, they decided to shoot on film. So they wanted that look, and they wanted to understand, they wanted people to see the film in that way because of its period nature. So you can make those kinds of decisions too as a filmmaker. I need one person on set, for my 6-day shoot, or I actually need someone to come out for a half day for 3 days. Like those are the kind of practical decisions that you can make, and people are willing to be flexible with those things.
Yeah.
Because no one has a stills photographer on set every day. It's not going to happen.
Not
Yeah.
possible. Emil, what's your experience with that? I mean,
Well, I just what I'm thinking about when you talk about this is also that this process of prioritizing your energy into marketing is also a way of understanding your own film better. That is in through development, as every time you think about audiences, you see your film in a different light. It's the same when you go and finance it, when you do pitching forums and you work with the pitch and you realize that there are certain things within the film that make a better sale than others, and that should be emphasized. And it doesn't necessarily have to conflict with the film that you want to make, and that's a really important point in marketing that I crossed so many times. I also edit trailers, and that is always like a huge area of conflict because people seem to think that trailers want to oversell. But rather, I think it's about finding the angle on your film which attracts audiences, and you can do it in a way that the audience will also appreciate the film, and then you've done a good job, and they will talk about it afterwards. But I think that finding out what your film is about and what your film is also about is the most important step in this, because like the film that I had here 2 years ago and which screened yesterday as well is a rock documentary about a 70s Greenlandic rock band. And I love rock documentaries. I totally love them, but I also understand that a film about a band from the 70s that no one knows, from a country that no one's been, and in a language that no one understands. It's a pretty hard sell. So okay, what is the film also about? Well, it's also about the impact that this band had in the 70s in the cultural understanding of the Greenlandic people, and this is something that everybody can understand. And so, okay, we market it as a political rock documentary about cultural identity, and this drags people in. And the funny thing is that when people come and see the film, they love the music. So in the Q&As, it's about the music. It's about why, that was the point of our making the film, but it was not necessarily the music itself that dragged people into the cinema.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, is that when you're working with team and you're going to festivals and you're talking to distributors, agents, and the negative feedback can be very positive, because even though they may not want to distribute your film, they will have comments on what they think the film is about that you may not have considered. Sure. And that's, again, it's part of that conversation that we started talking about at the beginning, about understanding how other people see your film, because that's a huge piece of it.
I also think that, nobody benefits from false marketing. The filmmakers don't benefit and the distributors don't benefit. And it's like, the Donald Trump movie where the tagline is, "Nobody respects women more than I do, nobody." And you say, okay, that sounds pretty good, and then you buy the ticket on November 8th and you realize that it's not only a bad film, it's also the end of the world.
Yeah.
And so don't do that.
Yeah. I think we're going to open up for Q&A. If you have a question, raise your hand. Right here.
Hi.
Talked about it a little bit, about Taylor Swift and Kim. I was wondering if you had stories to share about marketing nightmares.
Oh, man.
Marketing nightmares.
Marketing nightmares, like on social media, or
That's or if you want, because often that's when you really want to hear about marketing. It's when it's going bad. So I don't know if you had stories and like 911 stories.
The point of this debate.
Yeah. I refuse to answer on the grounds it may incriminate me.
I don't know if I have. Nothing's coming to my mind, really. I can't really think of a marketing nightmare. That's a really great question, and now I'm going to think about it after. Are you here at the festival? Because I can answer that question at some point. Like, I'll find you and be like, hey, this one time, and I'll tell you.
I think it's funny. I'm thinking about it too, and even though I wouldn't tell you, because, like I said, I'm a secret state. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the thing is what you were talking about before. You can always make it work.
Yeah.
But you don't really want to do that. Like, we don't really want to send the thumbnail to the festival, and then the festival has to make a frame grab. It's like, no. We actually just don't want to do that. We want to make it simple. We want to make it easy. We want to be as kind of proactive and what do people like to call me? An organization enthusiast. That, get in front of it, and that's sort of the whole point of the exercise, which is talking about what you need during production, what are you going to need later. I mean, of course there's stuff that's completely out of your control, like, a filmmaker wants to change the title of a film, like, after it's been out, or they want to change the image, and you've already spent $5,000 on a graphic designer to do the poster and print the posters.
Yeah.
I mean, those things happen, and sometimes, you can say no, and sometimes just for all sorts of reasons you have to make those changes. So you got to be nimble, but if you can be sort of prepared for those sort of moments. I mean, actually, nightmares, I can't even.
I have tons, but
maybe I'm blocking them out.
Briefly, I was working on a film festival, and she had mentioned there are high-profile filmmakers that don't like the name of their film. And it was 2 days before we were supposed to open the film at this film festival, and this filmmaker goes, "I don't like the film because I'm not getting along with the producer, so you need to change the name." Meanwhile, the name is all over in every single marquee, all over the city. So of course we couldn't change it. And then the day of the screening, come to find out, the filmmaker actually had like interns come and cross out on the posters with the real name. So people in it, were like, "What's going on?" And I was doing PR at this point with a team, and we had to come up with like some kind of explanation, like, "Oh, he's just kind of trying to be cheeky, you know, to get more attention. You know, that's why he's crossing out the name. And so it was insane. Like, we were, I mean, horrified. At the end of the day, it kind of like, I guess, benefited him, because people were like, I want to see the film that has the cross out title. And what's going on? And the Q&As end up becoming, you know, pretty ferocious too. I mean, that was the film that people were talking about. I mean, it wasn't, clearly not the best, but that was, for me, my experience. I mean, thank goodness I wasn't his publicist or his distributor, but it was, hellish. And then after that, it was like, okay, well, you know, now, unfortunately, this filmmaker hasn't done anything, so I don't know if that was a result of that or what. But, you know, those are just tiny examples of, you know, what can happen.
I would, before we run out of time, I feel like I want to just give a note. It's like a little secret. It's like a social media insider secret. It's super anticlimactic, I'm sorry. But who here would like to learn how to just like organically build audience on Instagram? Like, who wants to know, like, how do you get followers? How do you get the damn followers? I want to start with this philosophical comment, though. If a tree falls in the middle of the forest and it doesn't have any followers, does it make a sound? Yeah. Okay, so first I want you to, who has Instagram here? I'm sure a lot of you guys have Instagram. So we all want the followers. Honestly, it's super lame, but this is what I found out after hours and hours of research. So you go to a hashtag, first of all, find out your brand. Number one, know your brand, know who you are, sell that, work that thing. Your Instagram is going to jump from a personal Instagram to a professional Instagram, meaning you need to think of it like a magazine. If people follow you and you're like a car Instagram and suddenly you start posting photos of your grandma and her cat, unfollow. Okay, so that's the second part. And then literally, it sounds ridiculous, but you just go through, oh God, these are, okay, I have a lot of like before and after. So you go to the explore page. Instagram has a lot of caps. Instagram doesn't want you to have followers for some reason, but you just go through, I'm not kidding, this is what you do. You just sit there and you like all the photos. Does anyone do this? Is anyone, I'm serious, as a filmmaker, I do this. As a producer, I sit there and you can like 120 photos in an hour and then Instagram stops you. So that means, what does that mean, guys? 10 times a day, every hour, you can like 120 photos. And you know the rule of like 10%, right? So if you like 100 photos, you're hopefully, if you have a great feed, you're going to get 10 followers back. So if you like 1,000 followers a day, you can hopefully get 100 followers back by liking 1,000 photos per day. And it doesn't take that long. You just like what's that thing called? It's like carpal tunnel.
Oh, yeah.
It took me 2 years to get 120,000 followers, and I have like carpal tunnel, I think. I'm sorry, but that's just my little tidbit for all of you, for everyone who kind of wants to organically develop an audience.
Okay.
But I think that, you know, as much as you lost me about halfway into the what we were talking, because I'm not an Instagram aficionado, but that's a very good point about understanding the platform and doing the work and understanding what it can do before you jump on board. The NFB is working on a project right now, and it's an experiment on Instagram about that we're connecting it to one of our short films. I've got some postcards in my bag that I can hand out if we have time. But it is about, you know, talking about trying to tell a story on Instagram, and can that work? And it may not work, but it could work, and that's another thing that you can think about as filmmakers is, you know, using platforms in a different way, that as an experiment. Like, you know, if you have the time and you have the materials to work with it, you can try all sorts of things, and it may not work, but I think that becomes part of the process of learning about a platform and understanding the potential for it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. And if you have any questions, we're going to be around this festival, so come up to us. I know Roseanne has her own Instagram. We all have things, but follow me. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much. What an informative panel, and pleasant and funny and all those great things one should be. Thank you all for coming. So we're jumping right into the next one. So it's really going to take this to the next level. All these